And welcome to another show of Don't Get This Twisted. I am Rob, along with my co-host, as always, Tina. How you doing, Tina?
I'm doing good today, Rob. How you doing?
Oh, absolutely fantastic.
Good. Glad to hear that.
You know, it's still early in the morning here, sort of.
Oh, I thought we weren't doing that anymore.
No. Oh, that's right. We're not supposed to tell people.
You just told everybody we're doing this a different time.
That we recorded on a different day, a different time. That's very true. So we'll jump into this one because we have a guest on today, and it's been a while actually, because I looked up how long ago we had her on. We had her on in August of 2022.
That's crazy.
It's been well over a year, but I actually follow her on the Instas, so I actually see her posting stuff with her boyfriend all the time and her doggy. So I actually see her. It is our friend Lexi from, let's see, we did one on true crime then. We're going to talk a little bit more about serial killers, but in a different way. I think more of just the fascination. And since she used to do a podcast on that and she has firsthand knowledge of looking up things on serial killers, we'll talk to her. Hi, Lexi. How you doing?
Hi, Rob. Hi, Tina. How are y'all doing?
Good. Good to see you.
It's great to see y'all. Thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate it. I know
we enjoy it.
I can't believe it's been since August of 22. I didn't realize it was that long.
I know, right?
I got a little busy. But
well, you know, life has a way of getting in the way of a lot of things.
It does.
And going really fast.
Yes, it goes so fast. But I think, everything happens for a reason. And there has been so much that has happened in not only the world, but true crime. I mean, we've got globally so much stuff going on. But I think, now talking about fascination with serial killers is great because there's so much information that is out now. And people have access to it. There are documentaries that are out. There's more podcasts that are out. TikToks now that are popping out. Like people want to get a quick little excerpt about something. They can just type it into Google, and TikTok's like the first thing that pops up. That's crazy now. It's not a news story. It's a TikTok.
Yeah, I find it interesting that serial killers obviously have always been a topic. Probably, long before you were born. The 70s obviously were like the Hillside Strangler, Ted Bundy, the Zodiac Killer. There's a lot of things that happened in the 70s that I think a lot of people either don't know about or they're kind of the scratch the surface of how to get into, serial killers. I think Zac Efron did a Ted Bundy biopic not too long ago. I haven't seen it, but I heard he did.
He did a great job. It was on Netflix and he did an amazing job on it.
And I think, since you do know about serial killers, I think Ted Bundy is kind of that shoehorn into, hey, crazy people and don't get caught in the trap of what they do.
Yeah, I think so. For me, Ted Bundy was the classic. Whenever I was reading up on Ted Bundy, for me, I was I was always taught situational awareness. So for him to come up out of nowhere and have his arm broken, but be on a server, I'm like, why are you here? Go home. But I'm also thinking, I've got my medical background too. So I'm like, okay, you're going to get an infection. You're going to do all this. So I wanted to know, whenever I saw things like that happen, how did these victims get in these situations and how could we possibly prevent that? That was my interest and fascination into it. And so that Ted Bundy really fascinated me. And I think it was really smart of them to get Zac Efron because a lot of women in my age group, they are like, oh, hey, I know him from High School Musical. Maybe this could be a good idea, or maybe it was a great way to make some money. I don't know. For me, I'm optimistic. I'm hope it's all right, everybody, pay attention.
I think with him, because he was such a good looking guy for the time period, that he really roped women in.
Absolutely.
And he did do a lot of crazy shit because he had a VW bug that was always breaking down, but always had a way to pick people up. Like, you're right. There was a lot of like tell signs, but he suckered people in.
Absolutely.
He really did.
People want to know, or people want to believe what they want to believe anyway, though. And I think women are definitely, single women, I think, are definitely drawn to that. They want to believe what they want to believe. And if it's a good looking guy, they'll kind of go along with it for a while.
Absolutely.
And then some a lot longer than others.
Absolutely. And I mean, it also depends like on the, like, where are you at in your life? What if you're vulnerable? Ted Bundy also knew I think he had studied law. So, but he also, so you have to take some psychology classes with that. So he knew a little bit about Freud. He knew about Sigmund, and I feel like he knew enough to get into people's heads, not enough to be like, oh, it's obvious, but like just enough. He was just smart about it. And I don't mean like, oh my gosh, let's idolize him. I just mean like, there's a reason he got away with what he did for so long.
He was calculated. He was
very calculated. Yep. And he was from the pictures at that time period, he was considered a good looking guy. And
he was.
Yeah. So, I can't speak for everybody's preferences, but that was the standard. That's the reporting. They shot him out as this good looking guy. And then they, again, cast Zac Efron in it. Here you go.
I think with him too, that, obviously he manipulated young college girls who at the time of no social media, no way to really check backgrounds of anyone, the 70s, unless you could, unless you knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, there was no, stepwards back to find out about any human beings at those times.
And there was also a naivety about the time, and people they weren't raised to be looking up behind their shoulder all the time. It was just a different period of time.
Well, we were just coming out of the sexual revolution as well, where everyone was very open about, free love and that kind of thing. So he did it in multiple states as well. I think that's another thing too. He traveled across, and he made the mistake of going to Florida.
Yeah, I think if he didn't go to Florida, he would have gotten away with it a lot longer. But he came to Florida.
He came to Florida, and when they catch you in Florida, they kill you. So they don't play over there. And I think that, the other weird thing about him is that he did study law, so he defended himself.
Which is dumb.
Did he really?
Yes.
Which is super dumb. Super dumb.
Just stay quiet.
But I also think he was hoping that he could use his looks and his way of talking to talk his way out of it. Because there were women on the jury. There was a lot of things that I think, went forward. And it, again, made a mistake and got locked up, and, years later got executed. We were talking a little bit off air before. And of course, I think the biggest one that most people know is Jack the Ripper, where the media in England, even in the time period, blew it out of proportion. Not out of proportion. I shouldn't say that. That's not what I mean. It was well documented in the papers in not only England, but throughout Europe, because this guy was dismembering human beings. It wasn't just oh, he stabbed them to death. He did horrible things to them, or they did. I guess we don't know for sure, but due to what they think, it was obviously a male. He did horrible things.
So Jack the Ripper, they still didn't identify who exactly it was.
No, never caught him.
They didn't. There have been some thoughts about it being a female, only because sometimes of the brutality of it, some of it seems like really passionate, and they're like, oh, could have been out for revenge. And sometimes males don't do that. They're just like, all right, I'm doing this and I'm scared. I'm about to go run and hide. But sometimes there are female killers who will do things and you can tell it's like, okay, she was mad. Let me see.
Right.
I'm looking up to see what the last one. I thought, I want to say, remember when I was still scrubbing, I thought they found some stuff on him in, I want to say in like November of last year.
Yeah, which is pretty wild that these cases are like still widely open.
Yeah.
And obviously with the DNA information
and still being investigated all these years later.
Yeah.
I just think that it's because it's so high profile, and I think that they have several different people that are known to maybe be the killer. There's several people that are like, oh, it's like I know there's one doctor.
Yep, Dr.
Forgot
Thomas
what the guy's name was.
Nelly Cream.
There
that guy.
Go. That they think because of, for one, how the people were dissected and cut, they think it might have been a doctor. And he had, there was motives somewhere in between there. Because I know a lot of them were prostitutes.
Yeah.
Because in that time period, there were lots of streetwalkers in London.
Yeah, and that can make a lot of sense for the doctor angle too, because if they're still trying to like figure out, I mean, they're still practicing medicine, and I'm not condoning this whatsoever. I'm just saying I could understand the angle. But I mean, at that time frame, they're trying to get bodies. I mean, there were mass graves that were there. So why would they want to go to a grave when they could easily get, someone who's not really looked after, or someone that, I don't know, like a prostitute. Yeah.
It was easier in that time period as well, where you have less police presence that were out at night. It was a very small group of officers. You had very, very dark time period, right? Because the lights in the city weren't like they are today. So it was, I think, a lot easier to get away with things. And we talked off air before we got on to forensics, just weren't what they are.
Not at all.
You were lucky if you could find maybe a print, and they couldn't really separate blood. Like if there was blood there that was the killer's, they would have never known. They would have just been mixed in, where you have much easier ways of finding DNA and doing that today. So from there, I think the fascination of the killer probably started, because obviously before that we had mass killers and Con, and people killed people way before Jack the Ripper. Yeah. But this became something of a media circus in Europe, which obviously kept going through the time periods.
Did y'all hear a lot about Dr. H.H. Holmes as well? I heard some stuff about him potentially being the Ripper as well. Like there was a weird connection on Reddit of him potentially being the Ripper as well. But
like I said, I think there were several people that they could just not pin it on them. They interviewed lots of people that they thought could have been the killer at that time period, but there just wasn't enough to pin it on them. And those people who they probably did get in there either were great at interviewing and just, talk their way out of it, or they were just not crazy and were like, look, and they could say they were in different places at different time periods. I think as the things started rolling forward, at least to me, because me and Tina are both a little bit older than you are.
Just
the 70s.
Don't put me in that, Rob. Don't put me in
for like what, a year?
I'm trying to be
like a year, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Couple months.
Lexi's like two years younger than us.
Just 2 years.
2 decades probably.
Just a baby.
Shut up.
Actually, more than that.
Shut up.
You're you're only in your 20s, right?
No, I just turned 30.
Oh, okay.
Happy
Well,
birthday.
you're still 2 decades younger than us, but so to me, the 70s is when the craze, at least for me, is when it restarted up, because I know the Hillside Strangler, the Zodiac Killer, Ted Bundy. These are the ones that jump out at me, because like the Hillside Strangler was us. That was
in our neck of the woods.
It was in our neck of the woods. That happened in right outside the San Fernando Valley in California. Mm-hmm. My dad worked for the state of California at the time, and this is where they were starting to find these bodies. Not that he did, but it was known that these things were happening. And I think that's when the media circus really, really started. Bundy.
Here it did for sure, because that guy was targeting people in the valley that we lived in at the time. And
the Zodiac Killer as well up north, where, and that he was sending these letters to the media.
Yeah.
This is where they understood that they could use the media to make their ego inflate. Mm-hmm. Because we now know that they love that.
Yeah. And so I wonder do you give them a voice? Like, I go back and forth with my podcast. Sometimes I'm like, do you give them a voice? Like, are you trying to idolize them, or are you like giving them, they're always going to have their mark in history. For me, I think some of the biggest murders were the Manson family murders, because how do you get a whole group of people? Mm-hmm. It's a cult, but then Charlie never did anything. He claims to have never murdered anybody. That doesn't make any sense to me. And then to say it's a race war, but then you're also claiming love and all that. Like there's so many different components to it. And then also the media. And then, okay, so with the Mansons, I'm in the, right now, I'm not going to say I'm reading it. It's on my list to read, my to be read. I have the Chaos book, and it's about Manson and like the LSD and about how they were potentially, like, the government did the whole Manson murder, or like, let me backtrack. How basically the government created Manson and made him the little Looney Tune that he is. Now,
correct.
I haven't read all that, so I don't know if my little excerpt is 100% true, but that's what I gathered from it. So we'll come back to it. But
there are rumors that he was part of a government trial to see what would happen if you gave people mass doses of LSD. And there were many people inside this experiment that ended up in the Manson family.
No, I didn't hear that. But
yeah,
that's the thing about this, the fascination with serial killers. I don't have that. Right. I hear stuff like that and I'm like, I'm just going to turn the radio on instead of watching TV, or I really do keep all of it so out of my range of thought that I don't have that fascination. So when I met you, I was like, how come she wants to know about this? It's so gruesome and so hopeless is like how I see it. With serial killers, it's like the things they do, I don't know that they'd ever be, they're never going to be, they can never evolve from it. They're always going to be who they are. They're going to die being a serial killer that does these things. And for me, I just couldn't get into it. Couldn't buy into it. The only one that really, the Hillside Strangler, because it affected everybody. My family knows people that were victims of what he did. And I don't know. I just try to stay completely out of it.
Well, that makes sense. If you've gone through something like that, something super impactful, and that's a huge mark in history, but you were living that. Yeah. And so why would you want to be connected to it? Why would you want to dive into it? You wouldn't at all.
Yeah. It was so
Yeah.
funny because at the time it was going on, I was babysitting kids that were my age because they were afraid to be alone because this guy was coming through windows and just doing whatever he did. Like there didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And kids my age were afraid to stay alone. So I was called to babysit everybody. And I'm like, they're my age. Why am I babysitting? But the fear that they had where I just tuned it out. Which is apparently what I do anyway.
Well, I think also, for our time period, was the Night Stalker,
Yeah.
which is another. Here's my thing, Lex. What do you think? Do you think that we should? And I hate to say pump them up, but I think that's what the media does, and they do it either purposely or unpurposely, but I don't know if it's a helpful thing because most of these people who are serial killers are narcissistic assholes.
I agree. So I think the issue, it's like a fine line to walk on because like you don't want to pump them up. You don't want to glorify them, but you also want to be able to make people aware of what's going on and you can't hide any information. Exactly. So you're kind of like at the news, it's their, I guess it's kind of their duty to say like, hey, this is what's going on. And you can't really withhold any information. And so like the police, they have their steps that they have to take and their information that they can release and things like that. And yes, the news outlets, that's on them. They want to spin it. They want to take it. They want to take all the clippings and do all that stuff. They've been doing that since the dawn of time. It's like the game of telephone. But it's up to you to sit there and actually read between the lines and actually read what's going on and like look at the bigger picture and see. So I think which is why I was like, oh, should I do this? Should I talk about serial killers? Should I talk about true crime? Because like, I'm not glorifying anybody. Like I met right. Chris Watts. Fuck that guy. He sucks. My ex sucks. They were working together. Sucks. They were shitty people, but these people are literally right there next to you. I had an employee that stalked me an hour and a half home across state lines and the police didn't do anything about it. I did police reports, all this stuff, and just things don't happen. But if you don't talk about it, people don't know about it. So these are only killers and not killers, but like, well, yeah, killers, but these are events and crimes that have happened that we know about. So I kind of feel like we should talk about it. I don't know. For me, I feel like I should talk about it. I love to talk. So I'm going to sit there and tell you. And I told y'all people he was stalking me. I was going to end up in a body bag. I'm not doing it. I'm out.
When I heard the statistic that you come into contact, everybody comes into contact with serial killers at least 12 times in their lifetime. So I hope I never have. I mean, I really do, but that's kind of scary. It's a big statistic. It's not, I didn't think that it was, well, I never even thought about how many times I came into contact. I just assumed I hadn't and want to continue to assume that. Okay. But if that's what's going on, like that makes me think in a whole different world than I'm used to dealing with.
Yeah, I think the thing is it's not a black and white issue. Obviously, I agree with you, Lex. The media has to at least say, look, things are happening. And to be careful and know where you're at and know your surroundings. And I think that these are things that should be taught, obviously our parents generally do.
Yeah.
Where my line is when you start giving them a name.
Yeah.
And they give them a moniker. And unfortunately, that's what, like the Night Stalker or the Hillside Strangler, it generally is where the crime starts or how they're doing it. And this is then feeding them until they get caught, that the more they do, the more notoriety they get, the more they're stacking their ego up. And that's where the fine line, reads. And I see both sides of it. You have to you have to say something about it. But my problem now with the media, and it probably also escalated. The Night Stalker was huge. And I know you were probably not even born during the Night Stalker. It was every day, long periods on the news. It was always the lead-in story.
All day, every day.
Yeah. And it was always like, hey, they found this. Hey, they found that. And then it was in the beginning of the 24-hour news cycle. So this is when cable
it's
TV
just in your head all day.
It was just always
24/7.
It's gotta be tiring.
And then, then the OJ thing, obviously with OJ, it wasn't a serial killer, but it was a killer who already had a name, or who was, may have been the killer.
Allegedly.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Allegedly he killed her.
Oh, come on. Those gloves didn't fit.
Yeah, it's true. Exactly. So for me, there's the media. You're right. It's a double-edged sword, right? You can only have so much news and then so much of pumping them up. I just think it's a dangerous thing. But then we feed into it, right? We have documentaries on serial killers. We have books. We have, and to be fair to most writers, the people who write about serial killers are generally just telling you the story, the story of what happened, and as much of the true things that they've found.
Yeah.
Facts, murder weapons, whatever. So I don't want to do that. I think the television and movie side is a whole other monster.
Absolutely.
Without getting too crazy, but making a monster is making a monster, right? This show where they pretty much made somebody into a killer. We are doing that. Yeah, and he didn't do it. So
who are you talking about?
I forgot what the guy's name is. It was on Netflix, wasn't it?
I'm really happy I gave up watching most TV, because you guys are talking about things that I don't think I'd sleep anymore.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
what is it? Obliviation is bliss. Is that the saying? I don't know the saying.
I think not knowing about it is almost better. I mean, to some degree. I mean, obviously, if you know that there's a killer in your neighborhood, you should be well aware, and you should probably change how you're living, right?
Yeah.
I'm super paranoid. And I say that in the nicest way. I'm just very reactive of what I do. When I walk out of a supermarket, I look at the parking lot and I look around to see who's there and where people are. You're right. Situational awareness is key. And I think that most people should learn that. You should understand that if there's someone who's bothering you, you should look for an exit route. You should know where things are. I'm really crazy when I get in my car in the morning, and I live in a pretty nice neighborhood and in a very well lit parking. I get in my car, I start it, I lock the door. It's the first thing I do, regardless, because I don't want anyone to be able to walk up and just open the door.
Yeah, that's one thing my dad always taught me.
The other thing
lock the doors.
The other thing too is the misconception of that you have to warm your car up. It's absolute nonsense. Get in your car, start it, and leave.
Thank you.
If you need to go somewhere else to do something, go somewhere else. Because if there's someone who knows what you're doing, they're going to be able to stop you. That's just, the thing. I'm also crazy. I'll run your ass over. Don't stand behind my car.
There's a reason I got a big car too.
For you. Beep, beep. Yeah. Unfortunately, you're probably going to get hurt. That's just the way things are. I'll worry about it afterwards.
Got insurance. We'll figure it out.
It's just not worth my life. And I
didn't
try to
see him.
Yeah.
It happened so fast.
Or if someone says something to me, like, the officer will go, "What happened?" He was standing behind my car and didn't move. I moved him.
I moved him.
Well, you don't say that, Rob. You basically say, "I never saw him. I don't know where he came out of nowhere."
Well, I mean, my whole thing. Well, no, I'm saying, like, let's say someone came up to your car and had a knife, right? And tried to open the door and then couldn't, and then was walking around the back of your car. I'm hitting.
Absolutely.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the poor guy, but I'm not going to stand around and wait for someone to try to kill me.
Are the laws different in California? Well, I guess the laws are different in California. Let me
The
just
laws
not
are
even
very
pretend to
different in
ask.
California.
No.
You can't even shoot them. You can't even shoot them unless they're in your house. So if you shoot them outside, you gotta drag them inside and say
bring it back in.
He scooted his way in, so I shot his ass again. I don't know what to tell you.
So here,
yeah,
unlike the state that you're living in at this particular time period, we have a duty to retreat in this state.
A duty to retreat. A duty to.
I'm dead serious. That's what it's called.
Is that a real thing?
It is.
Duty to retreat.
So
I got to get educated
outside of your home, you have a duty to retreat. So if someone would pull out a knife, you're supposed to run first, not
You're supposed
react.
to take a step back before you cap them in the ass.
So
okay, cool.
Yes.
Craziness.
So even if you're allowed to carry a firearm in this state, you have a duty to retreat.
Hang on.
In your state, you have the right. You have the right to fire first.
Shoot first, ask questions
it's
later.
Wild.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I got a knife. Wait, hang on.
Yeah.
I'm going to run away real quick. Okay, thanks. Bye. No.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a few steps back, make it look like I'm getting away from you. But
It's absurd. Yeah.
No, if you come at me,
Yeah.
my duty is to protect my home. And guess what? That extends to anywhere I'm at, baby.
That's right. Actually, if you're out and about where you live, you have the right. If someone pulls a knife out, you can shoot them first.
Absolutely.
Without a
know
doubt.
your laws, baby.
And
that's it.
Unfortunately, it should be like that everywhere.
It is.
So, I think you'd have way less issues with this kind of thing all over the country. Look, we shouldn't sugarcoat this. Most people who are killed are women, and there's a reason. You're generally smaller, weaker, and this is not me
more distracted.
I think young people now are going to start getting killed because they're all distracted.
They have their phones glued to their hands. You got to sit there and smack them out of there.
True.
You have to limit screen time. They have that now on the apps. Like I was looking at the new updates because I have to put the closed captions on now because of my hearing and stuff. And so then I was looking at all the accessibility features and everything else, and the screen time. I was looking at that. I was just talking to my parents. They're like, "Yeah, we have that. Why? Why can't you just tell them?" This is not my parents. I'm just thinking about in general. Like, why are we at that point now? I remember when the iPhone came out, and I remember whenever I first got a phone, my parents were like, "All right, go put your phone over here in this room."
Over there.
Yeah. And then that was it.
Right.
Then I went to bed. But now I have screen time.
Well, I think we find that that's the problem, right? A lot of people who are getting attacked or issues, people will get in their car now, start it, and then get on their phone.
Yep.
Like, so we are easily distracted now as a culture. So you are easily more a victim. So I think what you said from the very beginning is situational awareness will at least keep you somewhat safer. People who want to attack you are going to attack you, but these type of people are generally not running up and just stabbing you and running. They're have psychological issues, so they're taking you, keeping you, raping you, then killing you. These are the general steps of those type of killers. And some of them have been kept for a long period of time. Once they find the body, they know that they were chained down, kept, fed. Crazy shit. People are just crazy.
There was a duo, a military duo. They were, it was a Marine and Army veteran duo. And they had like this whole camp, and there were bodies that were just buried underneath their compound. And it was just like, okay. And it's like, you really don't know who people are. And this was like right down the road from like a neighborhood. And so I remember my dad told me about that story, and I was like, oh, Charles Charles Eaton, I think was his name. Charles Eaton.
I think those are the things too that fascinate us with these type of thing, is that when they happen in neighborhoods that you would think are safe.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them do happen in neighborhoods that are safe. Most of these serial killers aren't in the inner city. These are people who have time, motive, can easily do things. So these generally happen in the suburbs where people aren't keeping an eye on you all the time, or you're just the neighbor down the street. They're like, oh, that's just Bill. Bill would never do anything crazy like that. And like you said, Bill has a closet full of bodies, or, they're finding people stuffed in malls and they don't find out until the neighbor comes over and the house stinks. These are things that have happened with people, right? They don't know.
The thing is, we don't know our neighbors anymore. Like I live right now directly across the street from a pedophile because of, what is it? Angie's, not Angie's Act. Is it Angie's?
Angie's Law, I think.
Angie's Law. They have to register, but now they only have to register for 10 years.
What?
So I know firsthand that I know firsthand that he did it, but now he doesn't have to register years later. And he did it to his own children.
Angie's Law, is that what you said? I'm about to research that.
I think that's what it's called. There's a website you can go on that tells you
10 years
how many people are in your neighborhood.
Where they are.
No.
So you can go on, I think it's angieslaw.com. You can type in your zip code and it'll tell you all the registered sex offenders in your neighborhood.
I'm going to get it.
And they're not all registered.
No, I know. And that's
because
so crazy.
We know that he was, and this was years ago when my mom was still alive, and they checked that and he was not on it. So my mom raised hell, and he had to go and they came out and told him, you need to register again. And so he registered. But then they changed just recently. I want to say they changed the law, and now it's 10 years. So after 10 years of doing whatever the hell you want to do to children, you're free to roam again. That doesn't make sense to me, because that's something that I don't think gets fixed in 10 years.
No, because that child is not fixed in 10 years.
Well, and brain to want to do that.
It's called Megan's Law.
Megan's Law. That's it. I knew it was.
Law.
Yeah.
So on our side of the world, meganslaw.ca.gov is the website that you can check. So this is for California. I'm sure in your state, because this is what I did. I just put sex offenders website.
Okay.
If you did it in your neighborhood, Lex, I bet you there is one. It is definitely not something you want to do. Like it's unfortunate. Like here, I'm looking at it right now. So on ours, you can, let's see, please enter all. Oh, you have to put your whole address, at least. And on my side, let's see if there's anybody in my neighborhood. This will, I'm sure, make me happy.
Yeah.
I don't know why I brought that up. That's a whole different podcast.
Well, not really, because I think a lot of these people could end up being killers.
Well,
I think
so the guy
probably be more.
The guy that on Bumble who I had met, he was a registered sex offender, and it took me like having to go and look him up and see that. And most people, you don't know, but listen, I will Google you. I don't care. I expect you to Google me too. I don't have anything.
I never do that. I need to start doing that.
Like you're gonna see me and my puppy. Like that's it. But some of these people, like all I had to do, type in that name, and it's a mugshot. You can go on this stuff.
Is it really that
easy?
easy?
It is that easy.
No shit.
Yes, and you can do it, and it takes digging. And like so, in the past 10 years, medical killings have been also a thing too. There's been a lot for like a lot of allied health professionals that are assisting or killing, a lot of surgeons, things like that, nurses, you name it. And it doesn't matter like what profession you're in. It's just how can you do it? And if you like have a motive to want to hurt somebody or kill somebody. And I think that I think being able to get a record of it, you're not, like Rob was saying earlier, you can't get away with a lot of stuff now because everything is on public record. Like some of the doctors, if they're trying to go, like Dr. Death, he definitely should have been caught. A lot of these places don't vet who they hire, and they just say, okay, cool, that sounds like a great name. That sounds like a great company. Let's go ahead and go there. But if they would actually taken their time and done the research, this guy didn't do his training. He didn't do the complete stuff. A lot of people don't ask surrounding people of who, like for job interviews. I wish they would ask, like get actual peer references and like see what's going on, because I could tell you a whole lot about it. But then I know legality wise, you probably can't do that, but whatever. But
so just for funsies, and I put in my zip code, there are 30 offenders in just my zip code.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
And so
I bet you there's more in mine. Let me look.
Probably.
I'll look at it.
Although that's not something you really want to like.
I'm gonna put in.
Then
I'm gonna put
I
in
also
my.
heard it's up to 16 that you see in your lifetime serial killers.
Oh.
According to BuzzFeed.
So in my old zip code in the valley, there's 24.
Is that my zip code?
No, yours. I don't know your zip code, but mine was Northridge. So
okay.
Wow.
91325.
I literally just Googled sex offenders near me, and it just popped up like a whole list of people. It's just in the county.
So just think about this. That these are the things that you really need to know in your neighborhoods, because these are the people who, and again, I don't want to put sex offenders and serial killers in the same ballpark, but there could be things that are tiptoe close to each other, right? Because they usually find out the serial killers were either molested. Obviously, they're animal killers. There's a lot of things that when you start putting these people together in bunches, there's a lot of things that they find are very similar. So these are just things that I think that being knowing your situational awareness and knowing where you're from and knowing the neighborhood you live in, it's just good to know. And look, I think if there are sex offenders in your neighborhood, they should be on a list. You should know who's down the street from you.
Yeah.
You should be able to know, like, oh yeah, this is an issue. And again, I don't want to put those in the same ballpark, but like I'm not one for people who do anything to children. So I could give two shits that these, they're not good human beings.
Listen, my friends, we've got shoot your local pedophile, blast it all over Facebook, Christmas cards, all that stuff on there. Those are probably the funniest. I don't want to say funniest, but it's like, how else are you going to, a lot of people are like, oh, you're making fun of it, but it's like, how else are you going to make light of a situation? Like this is morbid, but this is what's going on. So I'm from a stand your ground state. I'm from Texas. So,
yeah.
We're going to be who we are. And I think, but I'm not saying, people are going to go out guns blazing and I'm around here waving mine around or whatever. But I do think that just be aware and make whatever decisions you feel is comfortable for yourself. You don't need to go get all crazy. You don't need to be an extremist. Just stay in your own lane and just be aware. People are going to do what they're going to do. So you have that information, use it and protect yourself.
Exactly. I think it's very interesting, mostly on the Megan's Law one. So there's little, it looks like a Google map really, with the little, your little drops of where people are. And there's a guy literally like within walking distance of my house.
Yikes.
But you can actually click on them and it shows their mugshot and it tells you what their offense is and everything. It's pretty detailed,
pretty invasive.
Pretty detailed, actually.
Yeah, invasive for them.
I mean, it tells you their date of birth, their picture, what they did, what their offense was, when they were released. So look, people, you use the things that you have around you to make sure that because you may be around somebody who, has done some pretty hideous shit, and those things might end up happening to the people in your neighborhood. I don't know. I think that these are the type of things that we all need to do to keep people safe, to keep us away from people who might do harm. And the people who do end up doing these hideous crimes of serial killing are the people that never had an idea. We'll see Dahmer. Like, Dahmer's the big guy of our generation, probably, or the new generation.
Yeah, Dahmer is a little confusing to me. I don't understand his psychology at all.
He obviously had some issues with his sexuality. Because he said he wasn't gay, but obviously
his
ended
actions were doing a little something different.
Yeah. And the guy did just hideous shit to people. The whole thing of drilling people's heads, and he basically made them zombies.
Yeah.
Like, he was drugging the shit out of people. A very bizarre individual, obviously.
He was hurting. Like, Dahmer was hurting a lot. And I think a lot of killers, like a lot of serial killers are. And I wonder, like, what if somebody just took the time to, like, talk to him? Be like, dude, what is going on with you? Like, what's wrong? Can I help you with something? Like, not to go kill anybody or anything, but, like, do you want to talk about what's going on in your brain right now?
Right. Yeah. And I think that he had social issues. And once they opened up that book of, like, interviewing parents, and, he had parental issues. There was a lot of things that were wrong that kind of took him down this path. Once they opened that, you start putting things together of, like, he killed animals as a child, and then that kind of took him down the path of what was next. Not that I want to correlate that, but obviously those are the things that once you look into serial killers, it's almost in all of them that they killed animals as children. And I don't mean, like, going hunting. I mean, killed animals.
Yeah, like, they have some weird tendency to, like, just physically, with their bare hands, take an animal's life. That is what they're just drawn to do.
And normally torture it before they kill it.
Yep.
Correct. So I think, the fascination with this is not going to go away, right? There's more and more documentaries. There's more books. There's more things that drive us to this. We said something off the air, and I don't know, because I haven't dove into it, but it is more apt to be done by females, right? The podcasts, like you said, Lex, they're mostly female driven. A lot of memes go along of like, hey, my girlfriend or wife is into watching serial killer documentaries. Yeah. I don't understand it, because I'm really not a huge fan of it either. Have I watched them? Sure. But I think mine is more on the side of, like you said, you kind of want to try to understand the psychological behavior of horrible people, so you don't get caught in the whirlwind of horrible people. That you can kind of start seeing the signs and go, I gotta bail out of this shit now, or get away from this type of person before something bad happens, or go to the police and say, hey, this guy is doing this, and this. Like, I watched the one on Gacy, which guy was just a fucking goofball.
Where's his business card at?
But he was a clown.
Literally.
Like, this guy literally was a party clown that killed children.
And then he was also into politics.
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
Yeah, weird, right?
It's so weird.
Well, if you look at the moral background of people that are in politics, it totally makes sense, though.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of true.
Right?
And they found like, I don't know how many bodies they found underneath these
33.
floorboards.
33
Oh,
bodies.
Jesus.
Yeah, like this guy.
See, Lexi, you know way too much.
My brain is so weird. Trust me, I try to figure it out all the time. My boyfriend's like, can you just not? We'll be sitting there and I'm like, hey, did you know? He's like, just no.
No, that's funny. Can you just not? Can you just not?
Bless his little heart.
He's so sweet, but he's also like, he's so sweet because like he'll put on shows that he knows that I'll just get so interested in, and then he'll go do whatever he wants. It's great. Like true crime shows, he knows.
Did you hear about?
Like, oh, you like that?
Did you hear about the one guy who used his local sex offender website to hunt down people and kill them?
Stop it. Was he getting sex offenders or was he?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well,
He was. Yeah. He ended up getting caught, but I think he was killing him with a hammer.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
Guys, we can't do that.
I forgot.
There was some personal shit going on with him for sure.
There was. He was actually raped as a child.
We can't. We can't do that, guys.
Yeah, I'm definitely not condoning that. I would never condone such a thing.
Yeah,
but it is a true story.
Get him in Florida, then you could just shoot him because he came at you. No.
Yeah.
Let's go to Florida.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you.
Like, look at this. Can y'all see this? That's
and even they snap.
Pogo the Clown.
There he is right there. Yep.
It's terrifying.
That's him.
Gacy. And then this was his business card that he had. And he was just a contractor. And he would sit there and it would back in the day, because it was a lot of men at the time, they were just being sneaky and creepy and they couldn't admit that they had other sexual tendencies. And I think that was a lot of the problem too, is like, if you want to find out about yourself, go ahead and find out about yourself, but like do it safely and don't push it on anybody else. Don't shove it down anybody's throat. Mm-hmm. Just do whatever you need to do, but like do behind closed doors safely. Anyway, the cruising, I think that probably would have helped Dahmer some, maybe not, but he was, anyway. With Gacy, he was a contractor and he would go around cruising and he would sit there in the parks and he would wait for like little boy or like teenagers to come up and like talk to him. And he would like go and drive around and look for these boys. And the cruising was a terminology that they would do in that time period. And that was just normal. And that whole political ring that Gacy was a part of, they were all in on it. All of them.
Right.
Well, you notice that when, not getting off topic, but when there's a huge like sex ring going on, there's a lot of politicians in it, a lot of big names, people everybody knows they're involved in it, and that, you know, it makes you kind of wonder what the hell is going on. When people have too much money, though, they have too much time on their hands. They have too much that they could do and get away with. So. You know, it's kind of a creepy situation.
Look at the guy who hung himself in prison. He had a whole island full of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hung himself.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
With the cameras off.
Allegedly.
Yeah. And the cameras just happened to be off when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
They had to off him because he knew too much.
Shut up!
Well, and look at this. Look, the woman who helped him had a black book that she got convicted and no names came out of that book.
Make that make sense.
How does this kind of, well, first of all, why do we let it happen as a society? These are things that we need to stop doing. But these are people who, that guy was a serial rapist or serial child, factory. These are things that are no different than being a serial killer. This guy was ruining people just as bad. He just wasn't taking lives. He was ruining them forever.
Yeah. And
so.
sorry, I was just gonna say, it's amazing. Like, not not only that, but like even in the child star industry, there's a lot of people like coming out now talking about, oh, like, hey, this happened to me, this happened to me. And I remember when I was a kid, like I was a part of a talent agency and I got to audition for Wizards of Waverly Place. And I remember like, oh man, that'd be so cool, you know? And then Selena Gomez is out there doing that. And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever, both are in the same town, whatever, it's fine. But I'm sitting back at it now and I'm hearing like all the different stories come out. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
I'm so glad I went through what I went through and I didn't go through that, because I'm on the other side of it now. I don't know if I can handle it, but it's like, that is crazy. And that happens every single day. And there are people like the stuff with with that one family and that one singer that had the picture in the Cabo. All of that's coming out and talking about how, oh, I didn't do that film. Yes, you did. There's like receipts of you signing off on the document saying that you did it. Right. So anyway,
look, we know there's the fascination of a lot of different things is obviously brought Hollywood to do films that are based on all these things, with the exception of things that hurt them.
Yes.
Like, I don't think you're ever going to see an Epstein biopic. And if you do, it'll be done by an ultra conservative, news agency that can get away with it, because nobody wants any of that shit coming out. Serial killers are business. Look, as many people badmouth the Dahmer one, and there was a lot that obviously, mostly former victims, families. I didn't watch it all, so I don't know if they glorified him, but from what I understand, it really didn't glorify him. Like, they didn't make him out to be anything other than a piece of shit.
I don't think it glorified him. I think a lot of people are looking to argue for stuff. They want to just get mad about stuff. Okay. Like, that's what I think it is. Now, again, on the other side of that, I'm also not a victim of a serial killer. My grandmother did get murdered in Chicago, but again, we don't know anything about that information. It's, things like that. But I'm not there. I can't speak for the victims, but if the victims have a problem with it, if their families have a problem with it, then okay. But again, that goes back to the media cutting and clipping and saying all this stuff. That's, I
think if you're part of that and they use your real names and that kind of thing, look, the company like Netflix makes enough money to go to the families and say, okay, look, do you want us to donate money to whatever, or to, give them something, not that monetary stuff is going to help, but look, they're going to tell a story regardless.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, your family members were part of this story, and it's sucky. But as long as they're not glorifying him, and as from what I understand, they didn't. They kind of really showed you that he was a psychopath.
Yeah.
And had tons of issues.
Yeah. I mean, the actor had to take a break from to get out of that whole mindset, because it was so gory and so just fucked up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and just think, that guy did tons of
the American Horror Story.
What was the show he did on Fox?
The American Horror.
Yeah, American Horror Story.
And that was some twisted shit.
And just think that he didn't have to take a break from that.
Seasons. Yeah.
But he had to take a break from this. But look, people who've played the Joker have had to take breaks or die.
Yeah.
So when you start getting into the mind of certain things, I'm sure it's hard. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an actor. I was a wrestler and I did play kind of a crazy guy, but I'm easily can snap in and out of that kind of thing. I'm sure it's not easy to learn about people who are mass murderers. It can't be easy, but I'm glad they didn't glorify him. And obviously at the end, you find out that he gets whacked by the guy in prison, and look, which is a whole other if we want to get deeper into that part, you know, in California, if you're on death row, you get an hour a day out of your cell alone. And with, well, not even alone, with prison guards who walk in a very small caged place in death row here. They're very, very big on it. So like you don't, there's no other human contact. You're not allowed to actually see people. That Jeffrey Dahmer was left alone with another murderer says a whole other thing of being set up. So that's a whole other show. But I mean, just think about this. That's like letting Charlie Manson go mop the floors with another killer. Yep. It just would never happen.
We'll just let that happen. Let me just see what happens.
Yeah. And that guards weren't even around when he was doing it.
Exactly.
Make that
make sense.
Yeah. And it's happened since that with other killers. I saw one where a guy was a pedophile who was left alone with another guy and he got beaten to death. And when they went to court, the guy goes, "Oh yeah, I did it. Yeah, he's a pedophile, so I had to get rid of him." The guy was already in for murder. He was like, "Yeah." So
it's not going to change anything for
him. It's not,
and it's not going to change the system. The system obviously is a whole other problem.
Well, and do we really want pedophiles sitting in jail so that they could get out one day to do it again? Or is it kind of like, hey, this is an end to a means,
Yeah. I mean, but that's a whole other human psychological issue that we could start
that's
on if we really wanted to go down.
I'm thinking about the whole surgical the surgical castration, all that stuff. Like there's so many different things for it. And it's like, how do you correct it? Like, how do you fix the nonsense and the fucked upness of humans? How do you fix humans?
They say that you can't fix that.
Yeah. I mean, I heard chemical castration is the closest thing that actually works, that they've interviewed pedophiles who've had it done. And they've actually said it's the best thing ever because it curves the thought process of that, because you have, it's like becoming a eunuch. You have absolutely no sex drive at all. But
you still have your brain.
But you can also alter the chemicals, in your brain chemistry to be, because like you can also take some medications that will decrease your sex drive so much that you're just like, I'm out. And some people will straight up think that they're asexual. So if you can dial that dosage and calculate it enough, then I could understand chemical castration. I could understand how the thought process would work for it.
Right. And
scary.
Unfortunately, you can't really do that in killers. Because we don't know.
Here, let me give you a shot.
And generally, you don't know what happens.
Don't kill people.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a way to fix that problem, we would have done it many years ago.
Time ago.
Now, you can probably, we touched on the Charlie Manson and LSD. Look, we've been doing drug trials and tests on people for a long period of time and trying to either get into the heads of people or find out why we've been doing these things. Killing men has been around since the dawn of time. And if you're a Bible believer, Cain and Abel started this thing, right? So these aren't things that are ever going to change. We're animals. We just happen to stand upright and be a little bit smarter. Other animals kill generally for
survival.
Survival. We don't, and we're just a different kind of animal. It's unfortunate. I mean, I hope that serial killing slows down and goes away, but I don't see that ever happening. And look, we're going to continue to be fascinated by the human brain of why these people snapped. I think that's the biggest thing. We want to know why each other are going to these levels. I don't think it's like, oh, they're the coolest people in the world. And there are people who are definitely serial killer groupies.
Yeah.
I mean, all these guys in prison.
They have fangirls. It's crazy.
Gang of girls lining up.
Fangirls, fan
letters
guys,
writing them.
all of them.
Yeah. There are fans of them. There's no doubt. But I think it's most of the people that are fans of the shows and or podcasts and or things are more wondering what made these people go boom and snap. Because that's what I want to know. How did they get to this point, and what are the signs so we can all start seeing these things before there's 50 bodies, and maybe there's only one and we can stop them from doing it again. That's what I'm more interested in.
Yeah. I would.
Good luck with that.
He was like, don't even put me down for that.
Unfortunately,
just get
you're
rid
right.
of them. No, you don't need to
Take them all to the farm.
Again, Tina, I think that's or an island. Look, I'm all up for.
They had an island. Look what they did on the island. We just talked about that guy.
No,
I mean,
it's
the all for
island.
them. No, an island just for the bad people.
Bad people. I mean,
there's too much travel going on. I don't think they deserve an island.
It's called Australia.
No.
Yeah, but then look what happened to Australia.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what it was really
to
for.
be fair though, like the English didn't know that there were actually other people on it. They didn't know that there were
Yeah, they
natives to
did.
it.
That's some bullshit right there.
I don't. In the beginning, I don't think so, because I think in the beginning, the English literally they didn't even let them boat to the shore.
They said,
They
I'm the only one here.
They threw people in the water.
Just me. Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, that was freaking dumb.
Go swim.
They were just like
Columbus discovered America.
They took a bunch of killers and threw them off a boat and go, hey, there's some land right there. Good luck. And I don't think they actually knew that there was going to be some kind of native tribe on the
How
island.
would you?
But
if you're
Exactly.
somewhere,
yeah, but they didn't care.
that other people would be in another place.
That's true, but I think that I'm sure
They didn't give a shit. They
giving
just didn't want them where they
boating
were.
people. No, but in those times there were small islands in the middle of nowhere. Although Australia is massive, so
yeah,
to be fair.
that's a continent. It's not an
I
island.
just thought they were so
I'm
special.
all up.
They're the only ones on Earth.
Yeah. Look, I'm all up for putting an island in the middle of nowhere and dropping horrible people on it because they'll thin to hurt.
Well, but
I say we just drop them in the middle of an ocean and let them build their own island.
let's do a Squid Game.
Yeah.
Do a Squid Game style, and then at the end, it's just mortal peril.
See, but then isn't the squid thing more like then you're just as bad as the person that you're trying to get rid of?
Yeah, but putting them on an island would be the same.
Yeah,
thing,
but it's
right?
all against them.
Dump them in the ocean, let them get their island.
That's just as bad. Though.
No, but it could be like the what is it? The USS Indiana. Is that the one where they floated out in the water?
All the sharks.
Yeah,
got
all
them?
the sharks got them, and then they were like eating each other out in the middle of the sea and stuff. Their skin was like flopping off.
At the end of the
how
day,
about
the ocean would take care of them.
The Bermuda Triangle. Let's drop them off in there.
No, because they could come back
We should do a podcast on
the
that.
Bermuda Triangle.
Have you
don't know
noticed
shit
that
about that.
hasn't happened in a long time?
I have
Like,
so
boats
many
haven't.
theories about it. So many.
No, but get this though, they
Nobody's
but
talked
nothing's
about
happened in like. Maybe that's probably true, but because I know like for a long time there was like lots of bad things that happened there. Not to get off the subject of killers, but man, a lot of boats did disappear.
No, but you're right. A lot of them did. And then what is it? They thought was it 973, the Malaysia flight? They thought that one disappeared into the Bermuda Triangle. That was the last one that I remember of the Bermuda Triangle. But I was watching the show.
We're going to have to do our research.
I know.
Yes, that's very true. We should do a show on that. Hey, it's been an hour.
Okay, that has
These times go by super quick.
does.
And not to cut us off, we'll talk a little bit off the air. But hey, any last thoughts on our serial killers? And people at home can't see it, but if you look up into the corner there, fellas, do you see where I read it says serial killers in the top? But I spelled it like, oh, you guys can't see that?
Did you spell it like cereal, like nom nom?
I spelled it like cereal, like eating cereal. So on my side, it says serial killers.
Such a dad joke.
I know, right?
You're gonna fix that, right?
I will fix it when it goes to being uploaded. But on my side, it will always say serial killers. So
I know I'm just the talent, but we should fix that.
Yes, we will.
I'm gonna find something on serial killers, like cereal box killers.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Last words. Anybody?
No, just make sure that you stay aware, know your surroundings. Don't take justice into your own hands. Just be aware.
And listen to your own instincts.
Yes, listen to your
people don't do that.
100% listen to your intuition.
I totally agree. And my thing is this is like, look, we as a culture will always find a way to put people in this kind of light. It's unfortunate. I think the media needs to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I think stop giving them these cool names. Just go, look, we know that there's a killer going around and be careful. Stop glorifying them to the level of giving them more reason to do something crazy.
Yes. Couldn't agree more.
And hey, this is an opinion show, so don't get it twisted. Keep coming back every Wednesday and listening. And I'm sure Lexi's she has more time now, so we can bring her on more often and we'll have more opinions.
And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate it. Miss you guys.
Check us out on all the podcast places, Spotify, Apple, YouTube Music now. And these are actually uploaded to YouTube. And let me tell you, people have definitely been clicking on YouTube. Yeah, thanks a lot. Because we got, I think the first 5 days on YouTube, we got like 115 or 120 something listens.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's crazy.
Thank you very much, guys. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
All right. Cool. Bye.
See ya.
Don't keep this